If you're a true street squid, you may have quickly exhausted your ability on twisty roads, or you live in a flat, boring metropolitan area without a single winding road within a 100-mile radius. You've made a million excuses as to why you can't pursue track riding. It's too expensive, the track is too far, I don't have a truck or trailer, so on and so forth. So what is the natural progression for the street squid that needs to keep scratching that itch? Well, highway roll racing, of course. There's nothing more exciting than going as fast as possible in a straight line. Skill, technique, unnecessary. You just need horsepower and bravery. The easiest way to get that highway squid missile is to just buy an older bulletproof leader bike. So the first bike that's worthy of a roll racing rig is the venerable GSX-R1000. The Gixxer Thou has been in production since 2001. Since Suzuki isn't exactly quick to update their motorcycles nowadays, you can find a Gixxer of a particular vintage that won't be all too mechanically dissimilar than one you'd find brand new today. Although models post-2009 have a significant power advantage over earlier models, Gixxer Thous from 2003 to 2008 put down a scant 155-ish horsepower, which really ain't much compared to the 200-plus horsepower leader bike beauties you find on the showroom floor today. But after the 2009 model year, the engine was revised and power was bumped up to 185 ponies. But then again, in 2017, the engine was further juiced to produce 204 horsepower and 86 foot-pounds of torque. But if you can manage to find any GSX-R1000 in relatively clean condition, one that hasn't already endured a decade of Gixxer squid life abuse, you can eat up highway pulls no problem. If you hit up the Gixxer forums, you will find all sort of debates as to what generation is the best platform for roll racing, but honestly, you're just going to be splitting hairs at that point. If you're really trying to experience the most from your roll racing GSX-R, most forum squids endorse a exhaust, tune, airbox mod, and a sprocket change. And as far as roll racing platforms go, the GSX-R is hard to beat for its accessibility and large swath of aftermarket knowledge. And you know these things can put up with a lot of abuse. But look, if you're truly trying to walk all over leader bikes on the highway during your 50 to 150 pulls, you gotta know to get, are you ready for it? A Bosa. A Hayabusa, baby. Come on, I don't want to put it first on the list because it's a little too obvious, but I can't wait too much longer because it just fits the bill perfectly. When the Busa first hit the scene in 1999, its purpose was clear. It wanted to go as fast as possible, and that's it. The 1299cc inline four-cylinder engine put down 173 ponies and made a whopping 102 foot-pounds of torque. Its body was designed to be grotesque yet purposefully aerodynamic. The 550-pound curb weight made it feel planted and stable at ridiculously high speeds. Before the gentleman's agreement amongst the Big Four to limit bikes to 186 miles an hour, the stock Hayabusa was clocked at 194 miles an hour during Cycle World's testing. But those that know that a 1999 Hayabusa could easily do over 200 miles per hour stock. Despite its exorbitance and extreme nature, the Hayabusa became a world-renowned motorcycle over the last 25 years. It's been the platform for countless drag bikes and top-speed streamliner motorcycles. Of course, the dual-engine turbocharged Attack Busa has gone well over 300 miles an hour on the salt flats, but even Jared Frost of Whole Shot Racing went 274.9 miles an hour on a custom-built Turbo Busa. In countless different configurations, the Hayabusa has routinely created new standards for extreme straight-line speeds. The Hayabusa is still in production today, having celebrated 25 years in production. It currently uses a 1340cc four-cylinder engine that makes 190 horsepower and 110 foot-pounds of torque. So you got less top-end power than a lot of normal leader bikes and a good deal of extra weight to contend with, but there's just nothing that beats the insane amount of torque you get on a Busa. And honestly, weight isn't as much of a consideration when you're trying to actually achieve high speeds. You just need less aerodynamic drag and a lot of horsepower. I wouldn't suggest you go and purchase a brand new Busa, but many of them live incredibly hard lives, so maybe if your search for the ultimate performance for roll racing has led you to the Hayabusa, you may have had no choice but to pony up 20 G's for a factory fresh unit. But common Busa lore dictates that if you intend on turbocharging your Busa, which is sort of a non-negotiable for straight line speed, top-end roll racing, it's best to find a Gen 1 and make the full 8 pounds of boost with stock internals, or you could go whole hog and get a Gen 2, rebuild the whole thing, get the 350 plus horsepower build. It's really up to you, but maybe all the Gen 1s have been bought and blown up by now, in which case you've got no choice but to buy a later gen and rebuild the engine with stronger internals, and down into the Turbo Busa rabbit hole you'll go, and your bank account will never be the same. If the Busa's out of the cards for you, you can always look to Kawasaki for their own take on the bulbous, bloated, absurdly torquey, open-class sport bike, the ZX-14R. The ZX-14R, not unlike the Busa, is a motorcycle of a a different generation. It hit the scene in 2006 with a 1352cc four-cylinder engine that was making 190 horsepower and 104 foot-pounds of torque. Its substantial stature, long wheelbase, and lower center of gravity complement its strong mid-range torque, making it well-suited for highway buffoonery. In 2012, the engine was beefed up to 1441 cc's, allowing it to make 208 horsepower and 117 foot-pounds of torque. Those are big boy numbers. The power delivery was smooth, and the tall gearing makes it ideal for high-speed acceleration. The ZX-14R, while maybe not as notorious as the Hayabusa, has a strong presence amongst roll racers, and as a result, there's an endless aftermarket support and community knowledge. Not unlike the Hayabusa, plenty of die-hard Kawasaki Kyles have successfully turbocharged their engines or installed nitrous kits. People have used bolt-on turbo kits to safely make 8 pounds of boost with stock internals and pump gas, with modifications to ignition timing and, of course, other systems in the engine as well. There are a few motorcycles with known cut-and-dry formulas for forced induction. The Hayabusa and the ZX-14R have a special place in the drag or roll racing scenes where people are just trying to make the most power and hit fastest speeds possible. When turbocharging a motorcycle, typically some modification to the suspension, whether that be lowering or stretching it, is usually a good precaution to stop it from looping over backwards on you the minute you hit boost. And a word of caution: if you do intend on turbocharging your bike, don't just be cautious of your physical safety, but also your mental health as well, because more often than not, a motorcycle with aftermarket forced induction is not long for this world. Even when you do it the quote-unquote right way, you're still playing with fire and run the risk of repeatedly obliterating parts of your engine and subsequently draining your wallet. But hey, that's just the name of the game for a lot of roll racing squids out there. These things like to blow up.
Folks, I've given away over 53 motorcycles, valued at over $500,000 in my time doing this whole crazy YouTube rigmarole thing, and this Ninja 500 SE is the new kid on the block. Make sure you check out yammynoob.co and become a member for your best chance to win. You'll rack up your entries to win, and you can assign them towards giveaway bikes in the future, or you can hold on to them and then put them towards your favorite bike that we do later on. We've got another really awesome spicy bike coming later for this year, and next year we're going to be doing all the latest and greatest newest bikes, so make sure you're signed up and don't miss your chance.
If the ZX-14R is the old school roll racing dinosaur, the Kawasaki H2 is the equipment of choice for the modern squid who is irresponsible with their cash and they're insecure in their manhood. I'm just kidding, of course. Even I have been unable to resist the fluttering supercharger siren song in my motorcycling career. And hey, maybe buying a stock H2 for a pretty penny is actually a smarter decision than buying an older Busa and then spending thousands and thousands rebuilding the engine and the turbo a dozen times over. The H2 is every Kawasaki Kyle's wet dream come to life. It debuted in 2015 using a factory supercharged 998cc four-cylinder engine, making 200 horsepower and 99 foot-pounds of torque. And if that is not enough, people commonly build these bikes to make like 300 wheel horsepower with different supercharger gearing, intercoolers, and bigger injectors on top of the normal exhaust, air filter, and tuning mods that most motorcyclists are privy to. A bike that makes 300 horsepower, rider aids or not, is still absurdly fast for the street. To put that in perspective, a pretty fast car like an Audi R8 that makes 600 horsepower and weighs almost 4,000 pounds, a 300 horsepower H2 weighs like 550 pounds, so the power to weight ratio borders on the incomprehensible. And riding a motorcycle like that, whether it be a Turbo Busa or a built H2, is really an unparalleled experience. Human beings were not really meant to go that fast to comprehend reality in that way, but hey, some of us are just mentally ill. I don't know what to tell you. Because I bought a fully built H2 last year and it was absurdly insane to ride. The H2 has sort of a holy grail effect for many motorcyclists. It's an S-tier squid missile and a highly coveted machine for riders who want to become the biggest flex offenders in their riding community. When I had the H2 of my own before giving it away, the previous owner had reached 220 miles an hour, and I even reached 211 myself at a mile event. So if there was ever a motorcycle that's built for high-speed highway racing, it is the H2. And you might say, yeah, I've ridden leader bikes, I know fast. Nothing can prepare you for boost on a motorcycle. Whether it's an H2 or a Turbo Busa, it is a different level. It is like Godzilla levels fast. You're not ready if you've never ridden something like that. It's crazy.
Jesus Christ!
Kawasaki Kyles are going to do Kawasaki Kyle things, and if they don't have the budget or the gumption for a ZX-14R or an H2, the ZX-10 is another tried and true roll racing platform. Not unlike the GSX-R1000, the ZX-10 is going to be pretty accessible for most riders, having been in production since 2004. Presently, this bike makes 203 horsepower and 83 foot-pounds of torque from its 998cc four-cylinder engine. It is your quintessential race-derived leader bike, sporting a powerful engine and a highly tuned chassis for high-performance riding. And with just a normal leader bike, you still have the ability to actually ride it on a racetrack or a twisty road with a little bit more ease than something like a turbocharged Hayabusa or a ZX-14R that isn't going to be as light and nimble as a normal sport bike. With a traditional leader bike, all you really need to do is drop a tooth on the front sprocket, install a quick shifter if your bike doesn't have one, and you'll likely be able to beat a vast majority of vehicles on the road. It's almost as if people who build these massively powerful, expensive 300 wheel horsepower motorcycles are not just trying to beat other bikes. Maybe they're actually in a competition with themselves, trying to fill a void in their soul with horsepower and race gas. For most riders who are demented enough to solely pursue highway roll racing as their main form of riding, a leader bike with some basic bolt-on mods is probably the easiest and most practical option. That's why pretty much in that scene you see a lot of stretch Gixxers and ZX-10s that are pretty basic builds. Roll racing motorcycles is very much an exercise in flexing on your friends. Typically an exercise in male hubris, and when it comes to flexing, aside from the H2, another machine that is built to impress your buddies is the BMW S1000RR. The S1000RR is the be-all, end-all superbike for a lot of 22-year-old street squids out there. It's what they picture in their head when they close their eyes at night. That's likely because of all the cool videos they watch of S1K owners roll racing on the highway. The S1000RR has been in production since 2008, and as it stands now, the bike makes 205 horsepower and 83 foot-pounds of torque from its 999cc four-cylinder engine. The S1000RR may not be my favorite sport bike by any stretch of the imagination. It is analytically a very good, very fast motorcycle. And since we're talking about the highway top-speed roll racing motorcycles, a behavior that is rife with the thinly veiled aura of competition solely to promote one-upsmanship and the illusion of skill or talent, the BMW S1000RR could really be the poster child for this type of attitude towards motorcycling. Roll racing is much less about rider skill and technique and more about how much money someone wants to throw at their bike and a little bit of bravery. And if you want to throw away money on a fast bike, look no further than the S1000RR. Beamer simps, relax. I'm just joking around. And the last bike for highway roll racing is the Yamaha R6. Why, you may ask, when so many other bikes are faster or more powerful? Because the R6 is really like a quintessential street squid bike and maybe one of the bikes that's gotten the most squids into behaviors like roll racing. Yeah, it's not a 200 horsepower leader bike, but that incredibly rev-happy 599cc four-cylinder just loves to be wrung out to 17,000 RPM. And outside of the racetrack, there are very few places one could even hope to take advantage of an engine like that. I mean, the R6 forums are filled with people sharing their stories of all the sorts of cars they've beaten while roll racing, in addition to all the mods and upgrades they do to squeeze as much juice out of this little 600 as possible. The best year, in my opinion, for the R6 is the 08-09 gen that was making 128 horsepower and 43 foot-pounds of torque. So yeah, you're not going to hold a candle to a turbo booster in H2, but if you want to be the fastest public offender in your small town, dusting up on all the Harley-Davidson boomers and C5 Corvettes, an R6 probably fits the bill. And hey, if this list was all just 200 plus horsepower leader bikes, it'd be pretty boring to talk about. Had to switch it up a little bit, throw a nod to the 600 squids, and throw the R6 in the mix. Just know that you're never going to reach 186 miles an hour. Thanks for watching to the end. Be sure to subscribe if you're new to the channel, and I will catch you in the next one. Fact. Until 1997, there were more pigs than people in Denmark. Goodbye.
Ah, you've made it to the end of another Yammy Noob video. Aren't you just a special little cookie? Aren't you just something so great? Aren't you just, look at you, you're just so freaking cute. Why don't you go ahead and click on the next video? Why don't you go ahead, listen, hey, I'm just kidding around. Hey, listen to me. Click on the video.